So we had a couple of things happen yesterday that I didn't really foresee, and after a whole lot of work and some money spent at Menards, I came up with a different solution last night, as you can see.
EKSA introduces their new AirJoy Pro headphones. Weighing in at only 160 grams, the AirJoy Pro offers enthusiast-grade 7.1 digital surround sound while providing maximum comfort at a fraction of the cost of a major brand name series. For more information, visit eksa.net.
Welcome to HMODS. As you can see, the pieces that I was doing last week, they're super shiny. Now this is good, but it didn't come from the spray paint. It's an idea that I had pretty early on, but I wanted to save some time, and so I just kept going. I got this big, we got two of these big giant cans of spray paint. And let me tell you, if you ever want to paint something clear and you want to do it in 5 seconds, get one of these. This thing, this is a paint thrower right here. I did 3 coats of clear on each of these things, and it wasn't doing the job. It was holding the rust in, which is great, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to be glass, and as you can see, it is now glass. And I'll show you the solution. This stuff is acrylic resin. It's high gloss finish. Basically, this is what interior designers, they put this on top of bars, you know, like the bar that you go to drink. They put this on top. It's acrylic resin. It dries really really shiny, and that's the kind of finish that I wanted for this thing. Like, let me show you this. That is just glass right there, and it's so thick it doesn't even sound like steel anymore. It's just nuts. I love this stuff. I have it on my my Mass Effect shrine and my stuff over there in the office, and it's just, this is exactly the finish that I wanted. Here, I'll show you the motherboard plate too. That is just gorgeous, and this is what I wanted. And I know what you're asking, how is this affected by heat? Well, it's a hell of a lot less affected than spray paint would be. When this stuff is combining, it's a two-part acrylic resin epoxy. And when the stuff is combining, it creates heat. And so this stuff is really resistant to heat, because all it does is cure more. So this will be fine. So yeah, that's what I did last night. I primed the front panel, which is what we're going to finish up today, hopefully. But so the only issue with this stuff is it takes a long time to cure. This took all night. Thankfully, I only have a couple of touch-ups that I need to do, but really this side is done. So we're gonna do a couple of things, and then we're gonna do the inner part of the chassis, and it's gonna look super cool. I wasn't gonna add like RGB lighting or anything like that, but I kind of have to now. It just looks amazing, and the shine is going to just bounce that light all over the place. I don't normally do that. I normally use, flat textured white, but this is just going to be on a whole new level, and it's really good. Like, it's really capturing the patina of all the rust and the leftover paint and the paint remover, which, as it turns out, looks super fucking cool. It just looks aged, and it looks gorgeous. But the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to do the feet, and this is kind of an issue because we can't put the feet back where they were. Because the door of the frame, the door panels come in right there. So we have to move the feet. So I'm gonna put the 2 front ones right here, and the 2 back ones right about here. The feet are bigger than what I would like. It's gonna raise the center of gravity about 3/8 of an inch, which I'm not a huge fan of, but the base of it. Actually, I think we're going to put the front ones here, aren't we? We'll put them right about here, and it will lengthen the base. It doesn't do a whole lot for the width of the footprint, but like I'm not seriously worried about it. The weight from the power supply should help mitigate that just a tad. You know, the weight from all this up here will raise the center of gravity a lot, but I don't think it's going to move a whole lot. And if anything, like if anything does happen, well, I'm going to have a hell of a rebuild on my hands. But I really don't think it'll be an issue. So one thing Danielle suggested with this is we fill this with acrylic resin. Actually, I'm going to use the J&B weld, but we mix in some paint, so it'll shine like the rest of it. But we're going to use this charcoal paint. So we're going to mix in with this charcoal paint with the J&B weld, and then we're going to stick it on there, and it's going to shine like the rest of it, but it's also going to have some color to it, which is a really, really good idea. So that's just, that was just a super cool idea that she had. And so that's the first thing we're going to do. Then what we're going to do is we're going to measure the polycarbonate window panels. And since it's a little bit tricky to do with this, I'm going to be using the parts that I cut out. So that's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. With the acrylic resin being so thick, it covered up all the holes that I made on here. So we have to drill those back out. Here's an idea that I had last night too, is when the polycarbonate is all cut and I shape it and everything, I had a really great idea. Along with the rivets, the steel rivets that we got, which I have to paint, along with the steel rivets that we got, I'm going to lay the resin just before I lay the window panels. So it will help the window panels stick even more. It's gonna, I don't know why I've never thought of this before. This acrylic resin stuff is solid. I'm kind of kicking myself for not having done the feet last night because it would have just stuck. But the J&B weld should do it. The J&B weld should do it perfectly. And since J&B weld, since the stuff that we got is basically the same thing, it'll cure faster, and it'll just stick right to it. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Rather than mix a bunch, basically all I'm going to do is I'm just going to into each one, and then I'm going to put some paint in there. I wonder how much it's going to affect the cure. It really shouldn't, but we'll see. So this is what we're going to do. Just gonna spray. I'm gonna fill it up. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is mounting, because how do you mount this without like spilling it? Yes, but then that's not really an exact science. Nope, I'm gonna have to find a way to...
You have to wait until it starts to harden up a little bit so it doesn't all just flop out.
You're right.
So it's a good thing to film over the top.
You're right.
You didn't have that planned all along.
I totally did. Okay, so now that we've got all of it poured, we have to wait a little bit for it to dry so that when I stick it on there, it won't just like go everywhere. And I'm reasonably sure that like pushing it in will create a vacuum, but I don't really want to play that game yet. I made a boo-boo. I measured for the pieces that I cut and not for the shape that it is. It's a square. So I had to cut an extra window. No big deal. It's done, and they both fit. This is the front panel. It was black, and I'm kind of thinking I should have left it like that. The idea was going to be to make it look sort of concrete, but this idea was envisioned before we did all this. And so after I did all this, I brought it down and I was like, oh shit, it looks terrible. It looks terrible. But I've got an idea. I slept on it, literally. And so I've got this, dirt spray paint. It's just model paint, and it's texture paint that you use for like tabletop games and, you know, dioramas and things like that. So I've got this, and it's nice and textured. It's got a nice kind of multicoloredness to it. And the thing I like about this is there's flecks of like orange and like a little bit of lighter color in there. So it has a similar patina to the rust. And if I need to back it up, then I can use some of this, which is just regular brown. But another thing that I had planned on doing was using this metallic to basically do like on, like, you'll notice right here, I've left some of the metal. So I've left some of the metal, and I think using this will back that up a little bit. And then on the rest of it, some just regular clear black. Some black lacquer. And since I'm going to spray paint this with clear anyway, I'm not going to use the acrylic resin on the front because it would be incredibly difficult, and I know it wouldn't have quite the same result. So the issue with the spray paint in the first place was that it was getting eaten up by the rust. And since we don't have that problem with this, I think a couple of coats of clear will look just... It'll also add some depth too. It'll make these panels pop. I'm gonna do the same thing to this. This is the things that go right here, the spacers. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this. I think I'm probably going to do it a little bit more uniform, but we'll see. But in order to do that, I'm gonna have to actually stick it in there now that I'm thinking about it. I'm glad I thought about that now, because if I was to put it in later, it would look out of place. So we're gonna put that in right now. And yeah, I'm really glad I thought of that right off the bat. So I'm gonna do this, then we'll get it upstairs. We're gonna paint this and see you in a second. It looks cool.
I actually wonder if we do have to do black over it, if we should do the silver and then black over that, because then it's kind of like the rest of the computer case where the silver was underneath.
That's a good point. We can do that now. We'll see.
Okay.
That looks really, really cool. So we're gonna let this dry, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back up and we're gonna put black on a lot of it, and then we'll use some of the brown. I had foreseen something like this happening. The spray can too small, but I foresaw something like this happening, so we can use a little bit of brown. I've got a bit of a deep red downstairs that I can also spray on there, and it'll kind of bring out the browns and the subtle tones and the black and things like that. But I think coating it with the chrome first was a really, really good idea. So even though this didn't cover the whole thing, it's got a nice edge to it. Yeah, it's got a nice look to it. So might do some touch-ups later on, but then we're gonna cover it with some brown. I think I even have a larger can of brown downstairs, but I don't think we'll need it. So you might be asking yourself, while I'm doing this, why am I riveting it from the inside? Because the smooth part is not going to be on the outside. Well, that's because it looks really, really ugly on the outside. And oh, it's dripping. It looks really ugly on the outside, and I'm digging the hell out of that. I need to get a sponge or something, or a rag. Ooh, I know. There's an issue that I noticed just now, and that is when I turned it, it dripped. One interesting thing about polycarbonate resin, alcohol dissolves it. So we are going to wipe this stuff away clean with just a bit of hand sanitizer. That looks really cool. I love that. Like it's just one, you're just looking at it, you're like, why in the world? But it kind of looks, it's protruding. And you know, architecture is one of those things where it's like, when it comes to like military bases, it's more about function than it is form. So those little imperfections in like a stronghold are just a couple of those things where they get completely eaten up in bureaucracy. So it's not gonna be super overlooked. Yeah, I don't need a whole lot of this for what I'm doing. Really, the only reason I'm putting this down anyway is to help it stick better, but it's also going to help as a rust inhibitor. And in the end of the day, I don't want it rusting any more than it already has. So this will seal it in. And so for that, I don't need a lot, which is why I'm scraping off a lot of this. I just need it evenly distributed so that it just sticks really nicely, and I think I've got enough at this point, so I need to okay, we're good. Hi. Okay, so in the meantime, you saw me doing some rivets. I did the other window. I did something stupid. I did all the rivet holes, and then I set down the J and B weld, and then I put down the wrong side. So that's fun. So none of the holes matched up, which meant that in the midst of having a huge temper tantrum, I just pulled up the panel, and I used the alcohol to get all the crap off, all the glue off, and then I just set down the other piece. I was gonna have to do that anyway. I'm just not happy about having to do it earlier because I had to peel off the other layer of plastic. So both of them are setting. The J&B weld is curing. So also in the meantime, what I did was I grabbed my hot glue gun and I glued the feet down. They were setting, but it was taking a little bit longer, and I was impatient. I thought I was gonna have to do it anyway, so might as well do it now. So I grabbed the hot glue gun and I glued it in, and they are good. So that's all good to go, and now all we have to do right now, is go upstairs, check the front panel, and go with that with what we've got. So just in the off chance that I do need other paints, I'm gonna grab this, which I'm running short of. So we're gonna go upstairs and check the front panel and see what we need to do from there, and I may or may not mix the airbrush. It's not dry yet.